I asked AI to rebuild Manchester United in Football Manager 2024. And overall, this would be a 3-season rebuild, with AI being tasked to rebuild Manchester United back to its former glories as the best team in England and one of the best in Europe. And we are completing this AI rebuild using the Your World mode in FM24. And with this being the Your World mode, this meant that players such as Alex Telles, Eric Bailly, and Fred were all still in the Manchester United squad. So it would be up to ChatGPT to figure out what it wanted to do with those players. So the first step was to ask the AI what formation and tactic it wanted to build around for this Manchester United rebuild. And ChatGPT settled on a 4-2-3-1 formation for Manchester United. 4 defenders, 2 defensive mids, 3 attacking mids, 2 inside forwards on attack, 1 attacking midfielder on attack, as well as an advanced forward. Additionally, ChatGPT decided to play a pretty attacking formation, an attacking mentality, as well as playing out of the defense, running at defense, and being more expressive. They definitely wanted to play through the playmaker, so ChatGPT asked to distribute the playmaker. We also wanted to counter and counter press. And finally, ChatGPT looked to play a higher defensive line, a higher line of engagement, and perhaps most interestingly, harder tackling and getting stuck in. The next order of business was transfers, and ChatGPT brought in some excellent players for Manchester United to build around. First up was agreeing a £110 million deal for Harry Kane. Obviously, we are using the Your World mode, so players like Harry Kane hadn't yet moved in this version of the game, allowing ChatGPT to bring him in to Manchester United. Similarly, ChatGPT decided to splash the cash on Declan Rice, spending about £100 million for one of the best defensive mids in the game. To bolster the defense, ChatGPT suggested signing Tarek Lamptey, Pau Torres in central defense, Emiliano Martinez, one of the best goalkeepers in the world, and finally, Wilfred Ndidi as well. The last signing of the transfer window was, of course, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who would back up Harry Kane in the advanced forward position. But sales were needed to fund many of these transfers, and ChatGPT recommended letting go of some of the fringe players on the team. Players such as Donny van de Beek, Eric Bailly, Brandon Williams, and Alex Telles were all sold to clubs in the Middle East. A more surprising sale, Christian Eriksen was sold to Chelsea for about $30 million. But the biggest and perhaps most important sale was the sale of Raphael Varane to Saudi Arabia for £90 million, helping fund a lot of those transfers. And these signings and sales meant that Manchester United had a completely new spine of the team, with Emiliano Martinez, Pau Torres, Declan Rice, and Harry Kane all being important members of that middle of the field that Manchester United would now build around. But it would be a difficult start to the season. Harry Kane got a hip injury and was out for 6 weeks right at the start of the season. And with the FM24 beta having a lot of these injuries, I'm sure more were to come. And honestly, that lack of goal scoring showed in the first match of the season, a 0-0 draw to Everton, with a lot of those attacking players not playing too well. It felt like Harry Kane was dearly missed. But United bounced back in the next 2 matches, so nearing the end of the transfer window after 3 matches, United sat in second, just 2 points behind Liverpool, so it looked like the signings were doing well, and there was a lot to build off of for the rest of the season. So now we rolled on to the turn of the year, with Manchester United now sitting in 4th. Things were also going all right in the Champions League. United were given a very tough draw, getting drawn with PSG, AC Milan, and Galatasaray, but ultimately United finished second in the group and were able to scrape by to the round of 16. United did struggle a bit at the beginning of the season, a 2-0 loss away to Arsenal, a loss away to Tottenham, a loss away to Aston Villa, and finally a home loss to Chelsea, kind of spurring any momentum they had. Additionally, a loss to Newcastle in the Carabao Cup quarterfinal meant that that was one trophy they wouldn't be able to win this season. So it was a bit of a stuttering end to 2023, but with barely £2 million in the transfer budget, ChatGPT didn't have much to work with as far as bringing in new players, so it meant that we just needed to roll on. And roll on Manchester United did with a complete turnaround in form, winning every single game in January, going undefeated in February, as well as going undefeated in the league in March. However, an early Luke Shaw red card resigned Manchester United to a 4-1 defeat to Napoli in the round of 16 of the Champions League, which meant an early knockout for Manchester United in European competition, another trophy they wouldn't be able to win this season. However, things were looking up in the league. Manchester United had risen all the way up to second place and were only 2 points behind Liverpool, who sat in first. And this meant that the biggest matches of this season were coming up. Liverpool away would be the match of the season. But it was at this point that Manchester United completely faltered. A 6-1 loss to Fulham in the match before the Liverpool game meant that Manchester United were reeling, and they would need to step up in the next match to be able to have any chance of winning the title. And step up, they did not. A 7-0 loss to Liverpool pretty much ended all hope for Manchester United for this season. This was followed up by a 5-3 FA Cup semi-final loss to Manchester City, which meant that any hopes of winning a trophy were completely out the door. A decent end to the season meant that Manchester United finished in second place, 5 points off Liverpool in first, and with no trophies to show for the season. That being said, overall, the Manchester United board was pleased with ChatGPT's leadership this season, and there was a lot to build off of, most especially with Marcus Rashford's 20-goal and 13-assist season, as well as Bruno Fernandes bagging 21 goals and 10 assists. But ChatGPT would need to figure out how to get the best out of Harry Kane, who in just 17 appearances only got 6 goals and averaged a 6.7 overall rating. So in season 1, Manchester United finished in second place but won no trophies. Would it be any better for ChatGPT in season 2? And so we moved into season 2. And the main focus from ChatGPT was to improve the defense, having allowed 48 league goals last season, with recommendations for improving the center of defense and the fullbacks. But before we got there, the first order of business was to get rid of players near the end of their contracts or ones that didn't want to renew their contracts. So to start off, Dean Henderson was sold to Al Duhail in Qatar. Harry Maguire was sold to the same club for about £12 million, and Aaron Wan-Bissaka was sold to Tottenham Hotspur for £21 million. Interestingly, there was also interest, especially from the Middle East, for Casemiro and Lisandro Martinez, but ChatGPT did not recommend selling those players, so they stayed at the club. But moving into signings, ChatGPT really wanted to bolster the defense, and all of their recommendations were for some defenders. So we started off by signing Nicolas Sula to bolster the center of defense. He came to Manchester United for £40 million with excellent physical attributes to help out that center of defense. Alex Grimaldo was then signed as an excellent technical player who can play all up and down the left, but he would be an excellent wingback on support. Milan Skriniar was perhaps the most important and interesting signing from the transfer window. Having already signed Nicolas Sula, ChatGPT decided another center back would be important, so they went after Milan Skriniar for about £59 million. And at the time in the game, he was playing in Saudi Arabia, so now making the move back to Europe, it'll be really interesting to see how he does. ChatGPT also wanted another backup goalkeeper, so in comes the experienced Fraser Forster. And with a little bit of money left over, ChatGPT recommended signing a young and up-and-coming English player, so we went after Michael Olise. And now we have a much different team from what we saw earlier in the year. Skriniar, Sula, and Torres were fighting it out for the center of defense positions, while we also had Grimaldo on the left and now Lamptey on the right. Otherwise, this looked like a team that might be able to challenge for the title. Is this the year that ChatGPT truly rebuilds Manchester United? Well, it would be tough because, of course, there was another setback for Harry Kane, who had already broken his leg and now had a twisted ankle, and he was just getting all kinds of injuries early in the season. And at the end of the transfer window, after 4 matches, similar to last season, Manchester United sat in second place. With 3 wins and a loss, they definitely had something to build off of for the rest of the season. But moving into January, more than halfway through the season, it just felt like a lot of that good work had been undone. Manchester United now sat fourth and were extremely inconsistent. A series of good results in the league always felt like it was followed up by a loss. Losses to Brentford, Manchester City again in the Carabao Cup fourth round, then Liverpool, Chelsea, and Norwich, while most recently to Newcastle. It just seemed like they were losing too many games to really be able to challenge for the title. Fortunately for ChatGPT, though, Manchester United were doing very well in the Champions League. They sat in second, had already qualified for the next round, and with just 2 matches left, looked certain for qualification to the round of 16. But being able to build off of that Champions League run would be difficult as a lot of the players were injured. Once again, Harry Kane was injured and would be out for 6 to 9 weeks. Star player Bruno Fernandes was out for 3 weeks. Declan Rice was out for 5 to 9 days, and Tariq Lamptey unfortunately was out for 3 to 6 months. Many of these players making up the starting lineup and spine of the team, United were struggling to stay fit, and unfortunately for ChatGPT, there was nothing in the transfer budget to help increase the squad depth for those injuries. So United had to continue on with what they had. And continue on they did. Manchester United had an absolutely amazing second half to the season, winning out in January, 2 unfortunate losses in February, including an FA Cup fifth round exit. But after that, Manchester United did not lose a game, winning almost every match. Unfortunately, though, it wasn't quite enough, as Manchester United finished just 2 points behind Man City, finishing in second place. They were the top scorers in the division with an astounding 102 goals. However, it was the defense where they probably still needed a little bit of improvement, not doing a whole lot better than last season, and ultimately that might have been where they didn't do so well. But having finished second in the English Premier Division, being knocked out of the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup, the last hope was the Champions League. And United had started off well. They did end up finishing second in the league phase. United then skipped the first knockout phase to move into the round of 16, where they were drawn against Olympique Marseille from France, and with an excellent 6-2 victory away from home, they went through 8-3 on aggregate. From there, they moved into the quarterfinals to play Arsenal, where they won 6-0 on aggregate and moved on to the semis. A favorable draw against AS Roma in the semifinals led to a 6-2 aggregate victory, meaning a ChatGPT-led Manchester United were playing in the Champions League final against Red Bull Leipzig. And in absolutely the biggest match of the save, we have to watch this one. Would Manchester United be able to win the Champions League? We're going to find out. The start of the match was very back and forth. An early chance for Manchester United off of a corner was then cancelled out by good play from RB Leipzig, as they had lots of possession and started to get some shots from outside of the box, but Emiliano Martinez did well. Halftime then rolled around and it was 0-0 in the Champions League final. A cagey-ish affair. Could either team break the deadlock in the second half? And somehow United didn't break the deadlock. Harry Kane threw on goal, but Josko Gvardiol with an absolutely phenomenal intervention. Followed up by a great Grimaldo free kick, Manchester United were applying pressure that was very difficult for Leipzig to deal with. Another opportunity for Fernandes led to an absolutely amazing save, but this point it was a corner in the box and a foul in the box. The referee went to VAR and the penalty was awarded. The biggest opportunity in the match Bruno Fernandes stepping up for Manchester United to take the lead in the Champions League final, and he missed a wasted opportunity for Man United. But at this point, Manchester United was dominating the game. Surely Antony would score here, but somehow he didn't. And as time ticked on, it would be a 0-0 scoreline at the end of the match. Somehow, United was heading to extra time. But there were no chances for either side in extra time, which meant that the Champions League final was going to pens. United drew first blood, and after that, it was up to Emiliano Martinez, who replicated his form for Argentina to make the biggest save of his club career. So United had the lead in the shootout, but Leipzig's players were unfazed and continued to find the back of the net. Both sets of players were hitting very good pens, each of them finding the back of the net as we were going to our last few penalty takers. Leipzig had to score, and they did, leaving it to United's last penalty taker, Bruno Fernandes. Bruno Fernandes, who had missed a pen earlier in the game. He had the chance to win it in normal time, and he finds the back of the net. Manchester United are the winners of the Champions League. ChatGPT has brought the biggest piece of silverware to Manchester United. Bruno Fernandes getting his redemption with the last penalty, and ChatGPT earning their first trophy with Manchester United. What a rebuild. So for the first time since 2008, Manchester United were the winners of the Champions League. ChatGPT delighted the board, winning the Champions League, finishing second in the league. A little bit of a disappointment in the FA Cup, but overall it was a great season for ChatGPT. And winning the Champions League meant it was the first trophy in the trophy cabinet, and there would be much more to come next season. They'd be in the UEFA Super Cup, they'd be going for the Champions League again, and could they build off a second place finish in the league? Next season will be the last season for all of the marbles. And moving into season 3, once again, the first order of business was to improve the playing squad. Scott McTominay and Terrell Malacia were entering their last year of their contracts and did not want to resign, so ChatGPT did recommend selling them. Unfortunately, we couldn't find a bidder for Scott McTominay. However, Terrell Malacia did go to Saudi Arabia for £15 million. After that, Tottenham came in with a £30 million bid for Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and ChatGPT recommended accepting that offer. In a similar vein, Saudi Arabia came in with an offer for Casemiro, and when asking ChatGPT what to do about it, they said to accept the offer and cash in. And finally, the most surprising sale of the transfer window, despite having saved a pen in the Champions League final, Emiliano Martinez moved to PSG for a whopping £56 million. Asking ChatGPT whether or not to accept the offer, they simply said yes. And the big question was, who should we replace Emiliano Martinez with? Well, it was ChatGPT's choice to go with Gianluigi Donnarumma. We sold a goalkeeper to PSG, then we signed their goalkeeper, and I think it's an upgrade. And one of the more interesting new features in Football Manager 2024, an intermediary offered Nicolo Zaniolo to Manchester United. And with that offer, ChatGPT said yes, Nicolo Zaniolo should be signed, so he was signed for £49.5 million. Reflexively, I scouted Rodrigo Mora earlier in the save, and his agent ended up coming and saying that he would be available for around £8 million. So I asked ChatGPT whether or not he should be signed, and ChatGPT thought it was a good option. So he ended up coming to United for £11 million. With the sale of Dominic Calvert-Lewin, we also needed a new striker. So João Felix came to the club for around £29 million. And to bolster the squad, ChatGPT recommended signing Eduardo Camavinga, and absolutely, I think, one of the best signings in all 3 seasons. This was an absolutely phenomenal transfer window from ChatGPT, in my opinion. Bringing in Zaniolo, Camavinga, Donnarumma, and Felix, these are world-class signings. who I think can improve the squad and might be able to bring that title to Manchester United. And at this point, the squad was looking brilliant. Kane atop, Fernandes, Rashford, and Sancho behind him, Camavinga slotting into that ball-winning midfielder role, and Donnarumma as a goalkeeper. This looked like a side that could win the English Premier League. And it was a very good start to the season. United won the UEFA Super Cup, ChatGPT adding another trophy to the trophy cabinet, a 3-0 win over Chelsea, followed by 3 clean sheets in a row to start the English Premier Division season, and things were looking rosy. But there was an ominous sign of things to come, a 2-1 loss to Leicester. But United were second in the table 4 games in again, but this time it was just Norwich ahead of them. United were in the driver's seat, and it was theirs to lose. The question is, could they maintain that momentum? And the answer is, not really. No, they couldn't. After losing to Leicester, they went on another good run of form, but it was a 2-1 loss away to Celtic that just changed everything for the worse. An absolutely torrid run, especially in December, with all of those matches. It meant that throughout the entirety of December, Manchester United only won 1 match in the league, and they were enduring a horrible run of form. And that terrible run of form dropped Manchester United all the way down to 9th place, completely out of the European places, and we were more than halfway through the season. The team was reeling with really poor club atmosphere, and the support for ChatGPT much down compared to where it was before. Even the board was starting to take notice. We were at an A- at the end of last season, but we already dropped down to a C-. But there was nothing ChatGPT could do in the transfer market to help remedy this situation. There was only £350,000 in the transfer budget, so we needed to soldier on. But fortunately for ChatGPT, a 9-1 victory in the Champions League sparked a huge turnaround in form as Manchester United went undefeated for the rest of the English Premier Division season, which was enough to take Manchester United back up to 2nd place. So it would be 3 second-place finishes in a row for ChatGPT in every single season with Man United. But unfortunately, they didn't do enough for Man United to win the English Premier Division title. That resurgence in form also meant that Manchester United were able to get back up into the automatic qualifying places for the Champions League phase, which meant they were going directly to the round of 16. But in the round of 16, it was an unlucky draw, Manchester United losing 1-0 to Liverpool on aggregate, and they would be unable to defend their Champions League title. And at this point, United were knocked out of all competitions. 2nd place in the league, knocked out in the round of 16 in the Champions League, knocked out in the 3rd round by Wolves in the FA Cup, and knocked out in the quarterfinal in the Carabao Cup, and meant that the only trophy for this season was the UEFA Super Cup. But there were better seasons all around for a number of players. Harry Kane finally hit the 20-goal mark in the league for Manchester United. He had 21 goals and 8 assists. Marcus Rashford also had a phenomenal season, 16 goals and above a 7.0 overall rating. Bruno Fernandes was potentially the highlight of the lot, 15 goals and 5 assists for a solid season for him. New signing Eduardo Camavinga was solid, 3 goals and 7 assists for a good debut campaign. And overall, there was a lot to build off of for Manchester United. Some young players coming in, some old guard helping them out, and a Champions League trophy. Overall, not too bad for 3 seasons. So in concluding this AI rebuild of Manchester United, overall the AI definitely spent some serious money and brought in some really good players. It was 3 second-place finishes a row in the English Premier Division, but perhaps it was the most important trophy that they won, the UEFA Champions League title, followed up by UEFA Super Cup, as ChatGPT brought home 2 trophies, and arguably the biggest one of all, to Manchester United. So that is it. That is the AI rebuild of Manchester United. Let me know in the comments, do you think that the AI successfully rebuilt Manchester United? They didn't win the league, but they did win the Champions League, so it could definitely be debatable. I hope you've enjoyed this AI rebuild. If you all enjoy it, I think we'll do some more as this was quite a fun video. But with that said, I hope you all are having a wonderful week. I hope that you all enjoyed this video, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye.